Okay, let's get started. Today we're going to speak about evaporators, also known as concentrators. And okay, and what's an evaporator? Evaporators are used to get liquid, remove liquid from something, remove water, I'm sorry, out of a liquid as a way to concentrate it. So why would somebody be doing that? So I'll give you two examples, which is what we'll work with while we're talking today. One is if you have, ooh, the text didn't come out good over there, but you have grape juice, that's single strength grape juice. It takes up this much volume. And if you concentrate it, boiling the water out of it, then all of a sudden it's going to take up that much less space. It's good for transportation and for storage because it's taking so much less space. Or another example is, the other example we're going to use is if you evaporate milk. It's called evaporated milk. So you could buy it as evaporated milk. Not so common in the United States for people to use that. But basically, when you evaporate milk, you're boiling water out of the milk in order so that it will be more concentrated. For milk, the main use that we have for it when we do it for milk is that we would, it's a preparation for spray drying. You want to spray dry the milk. You want to turn the milk into a powder. So you have to remove all the water out of it. You have to get all the water out of it. So the way you're going to get the water out of it, you could spray dry the whole thing, but that would take a lot of energy. So instead, you first concentrate it to get out a lot of the water, and then you, what?
Just asked if you started.
I did. You concentrate to get a lot of the water out, get a lot of the water out of it, and then you get a lot of the water out of it, and then you spray dry to get the rest of the water out of it. Okay, that's how you do it. So those are the examples we're going to use. Nothing to do with what we're talking about today, but there is another way to use a concentrator is when you make salt, when you mine salt out of the ground and you pull the water, you get it out of the ground by flooding the caves with water, and then you concentrate, boil out, basically water the water out. There's a Hilchos Shabbos question. Okay, you can read whatever about that if you want one day. The Hilchos Shabbos question about cooking the salt. Okay, anyhow, so we're going to use those examples of grape juice and water. Obviously, those are sensitive for us. Grape juice is being non-kosher, and milk because it's milk. Okay, so how does it work?
I mean, it's relevant for anything. It doesn't have an evaporator because maybe there's those ingredients too.
I'm just saying.
Use for chicken soup.
Correct. Yeah, not so common to use it for chicken soup. Yes, it could use chicken. It could use for lots of different things. For our examples, we could use grape juice and.
So you're focusing not on evaporators. You're focusing on grape juice and milk.
No, on evaporators. I'm just using when we're going to talk about how they use them. We're going to use those as our examples as we're talking about.
Are you supposed to add water to evaporate the milk? Like it's like concentrate?
Yeah. But again, for most of us, the use an evaporator to evaporate milk is a step before we spray dry it. Okay, it's the step beforehand. We evaporate so that we can spray dry it, just so we get a lot of the water out, so that the spray dryer has less work to do. That's just for efficiency.
Is that a retail product right there?
Yes, that's a retail.
I've never seen.
They never make it
right, because you eat Chloe so you've never seen it.
So
and I mentioned already that in the United States it's not common to eat evaporated milk.
It's one of the.
So is there a different ingredient that I could just relate to that's evaporated as a retail product?
So like if you have grape juice and concentrate, so you have that's
a retail product. It's not for consumers.
That somebody would have an evaporated concentrated product.
It's more for commercial.
Yeah, I mean the machinery we're going to talk about is very commercial. You'll see.
But even as ingredients, the consumers they're not going to see it.
No, but we're not talking about the ingredient. We're talking about the equipment, the evaporator, not the evaporated. You know, the evaporator, the machine. Okay, so oh yes, upstairs Sean has the evaporated water. Okay, so how does it work? So the basic idea, we're going to get into details in a second. The basic idea is that the water boils at a lower temperature than the other thing, what we call the solids. Okay, so if you heat it up, you get the water out, and that leaves behind something thicker, like a syrup that you're going to be left behind with this thick syrup which is reasonably liquid, but it's much more viscous than what you had started with originally.
I just have one quick question. Single strength is just regular, right?
It's regular.
I just
single strength is the original, is like how it came out of the tree. Okay, so you could do this in a pot. Okay, you could boil up a pot of water in your house and just boil the grape juice in your house, and eventually it'll get thicker and thicker as you boil the water out and leave the grape juice behind.
Well, that'll compromise quality, won't it?
Yeah, we're going to pass that in a second. But an evaporator is a much more complicated device that does that in a way more efficient way than just boiling it up in a big pot. Okay, and that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, now the way the evaporators take advantage of a piece of physics. I don't know what the right word to describe this. Okay, and that is as you increase vacuum, otherwise known as decreasing the pressure, those are the same thing. Increasing to make a stronger vacuum means that less pressure. Okay, as you do those, the boiling point goes down. Okay, as you have more vacuum, or as that another way of saying it, as you have less pressure, the boiling point goes down. Okay, so like for example, when I was in a factory, that was whatever reason why they were doing this, and they were the water that they were evaporating, essentially evaporating juice. The pressure was very strong. The pot, the kettle that they were doing it in, the device they were doing it at was at 70 degrees. So when you touched it, it was cold. Okay, in my hand is 98 degrees, and when I touched it, it was cold, and it was boiling furiously. Okay, the water was boiling.
The pressure was very strong.
The pressure was very low.
Oh,
the vacuum was very strong, which is
very
pressure is low. Those are the same thing. Two ways of saying the same thing, and it was boiling away. Okay, because boiling has to do with the pressure, has nothing to do with the temperature per se. I mean, so as the pressure goes down, the boiling point goes
What is
down.
pressure?
What?
What is pressure?
Pressure means is how much of the atmosphere is pushing down on that item. But what happens is if I have a pot of water, it boils when there's more pressure in the water than there is in the atmosphere. So usually in the atmosphere, we say there's 14 pounds of pressure. So when there's more pressure in the water, I mean, they heat it up so that there's more and more pressure building up. Eventually, some of it escapes as steam. When it's stronger pressure in the water than in the air, then it escapes. So if we lower the pressure in the air, it makes it easier to boil out. Okay.
This is why in Denver, the boiling point.
So that's what we're common. What you're used to is that in different places, the boiling point of water is different. So in Chicago, water boils at 212 because we're at sea level, just about. Okay, right. Actually, the CRC is 613 feet above sea level. Okay. So yeah. So
What's like Michigan?
I assume it's at sea level. I don't know, but we're 613 feet.
600 feet above Michigan.
Okay, so I'm just telling you that's what the topographical map says. That we're 613 feet above.
I don't know.
'Cause it's-
That's what it is.
Because it's the
I think
sea.
we're-
What do you
we're
mean?
not-
What?
Lake
5
Michigan is
feet
not
higher
the
than
sea.
Lake Michigan.
Lake Michigan is the
Okay, this is really not today's topic. But so at sea level, water boils at 212. Okay, but in Denver, which is however high Denver is, water boils at 202. Okay, and in Mount Everest, as is on the screen here, water boils at 158 degrees. Okay, because it's much less pressure. Okay, so it's much less pressure. Water boils at a lower temperature. Okay, so again, the boiling looks the same. It's boiling. It looks like bubbles. The whole works, but it's just not the same temperature. It's not the
Stick your
same.
hand in that 70-degree pot. Would it get burnt?
No, it's cold. It's not hot.
It's not possible.
So you didn't see it, and if you see it, you'll believe it. Okay, I touched the thing, and it was not hot. It was
Touch
cold.
the outside.
It's like the outside. Inside was boiling. Trust me.
Okay, so you could believe it, but it's not true. Okay, anyhow, it was not hot. So now in an evaporator, we're going to use pressures that are vacuums that are even stronger than a Mount Everest. Okay, we're going to get the boiling point way lower. I don't know if in my examples it's going to, but maybe a little bit.
Is this like a pressure cooker or exact opposite?
The opposite of a pressure cooker. Okay, let me tell you. Cooking happens based on temperature. Boiling happens based on pressure. So a pressure cooker says if I increase the pressure,
By sealing it.
The opposite of vacuum.
right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
increase, then the boiling point will go up. So instead of my noodles cooking at 212 degrees, I can make my noodles cook at 250 degrees. They'll cook faster because the cooking has to do with the
Saying
temperature
the
of
water
it.
could reach higher levels.
And therefore they'll cook at a higher temperature. As opposed to in Denver, eggs take longer. A 10-minute egg takes 15 minutes to make in Denver because cooking has to do with temperature. So the water doesn't get hot enough. The water doesn't get hot.
It's not hot enough. It takes longer.
So it takes long because it's the temperature that does the cooking. Temperature does cooking, but boiling has to do with pressure. They're two separate things. Okay, so we're used to living at sea level. So for us at sea level, we have an idea of how long temperature and pressure and cook go together, but they're not
And why does elevation affect pressure?
because there's less atmosphere up there. So the atmosphere is lighter up there for whatever reason. That we'll have to ask somebody else why.
But at sea, for example.
Right at Down Melach, okay, where it's lower, so there's more pressure. So
That has
the
to do with
boiling point
gravity,
is higher.
the center of the earth or anything like that?
I don't know. That's not my job. I have no idea. It is what it is. Okay, so we're gonna in our evaporator, we're gonna make the pressure even the vacuum even stronger and the pressure even less. And okay, now what we're gonna talk about today, we're gonna talk about a certain kind of evaporator, which in my mind is the most common typical one that's used.
One more question.
Yes,
Water evaporates not because of heat, but rather because of boiling. Is that
when it reaches there's more pressure in the water than in the atmosphere than
Right,
it
nothing to
boils.
do with heat.
Well, heat is what we do to make that happen. Heat is how we make it happen.
But
But
put a
it-
drop of water on the table and leave it out, eventually it'll evaporate.
That's separate, it's a little bit differently. Yes, because it will.
But it's that pressure, and it's not temperature. Why did it evaporate?
That's because really what makes things evaporate is when it's the surface, what the molecules are on the surface leave the thing that's there and they escape into the atmosphere. So at regular atmospheric pressure, when the water just sits there on the floor, the surface, there's always molecules moving around and some of them bounce out, they leave. We call that evaporation. They just leave, they're bouncing out. If we make more surface area, they bounce out more quickly. Okay, so like if you take a bucket of water and you put it on and thing, it'll take a week for it to evaporate. If we mop the floor with it, we spread it thin over the whole thing, it'll evaporate in 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Because
You see that it does without pressure.
so some escapes by itself. By building up pressure, we make the molecules move more quickly and then they escape more quickly. That's what we call boiling. Okay, so we're going to talk about a specific kind of evaporator, which I think, at least in my mind, that's the most common that you see in food production. There are other kinds. There's something called a tubular falling film evaporator and rising film evaporators. We're not going to talk about them. The logic or the chachma behind them works the same or similar, but we're going to talk about a certain kind. And the other one is, I'll mention that we've seen there's another thing called an evaporator that they use to make maple syrup. No, nothing to do with what?
Otherwise known as
In his cold rig, it had nothing to do with what we're talking about today. Okay, I mean it's the same idea. We're boiling the water out. It's the same idea. They're getting the water out of the maple syrup in order to make it what you want to buy in the store, rather than what comes out of the tree. But it has not the way it runs has nothing to do with what we do. Okay, so the main part, we'll call the heart of the evaporator, are something called effects. Okay, otherwise known as calandrias. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Okay, and in every an evaporator will have a couple of them, 3, 4, 5, however, depending on the size, we'll have a whole bunch of them. Okay, it's made of 2 main parts. Okay, a heat exchanger, a good old-fashioned plate heat exchanger, which heats up the juice, and a separator, which is basically a big empty vessel. Those are not to size. What I'm saying, the separator is much bigger than the heat exchanger. A big empty vessel where we will separate the juice that's becoming more and more concentrated versus the water that's boiling out of it. Okay, we separate it. Why are you looking at it crooked?
No, I'm saying every distill is like that. You separate different.
No, it still
Top
works
and
differently.
collect it.
No, it still works differently. You'll see in a second how this works
You have a
differently.
picture of a evaporator?
Well, it's actually the first screen that was on before you came in, and it's coming soon. You'll see a picture.
One more question. What is an effect?
In
What is the
effect,
word effect being used here?
these two things together. This one unit
The
is called
noun
an effect.
is an
It's called an
effect.
effect. Yes, for whatever. I
That's the
don't.
name of the machine.
That's called the section of the evaporator is called an effect.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know why they call it.
Okay.
Okay, now in a evaporator, all the juice goes through all the effects. Okay, it's not like some goes to the first one, some goes second, some to the third. Everything goes from 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5. Each one moves from effect to effect. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you in diagram before we get to a picture and a diagram what it looks like. Okay, what's going on in the effects. Okay, because here and you'll see the chachma of what's going on. Okay, so here we go. We start off with just one heat exchanger. Okay, remember that looks like that's the heat exchanger. Okay, that's what that thing, that picture, that's a heat exchanger. Okay, those are all the plates. If you can't tell, those are
Supposed to be perfect.
what?
Lines. Good.
Why are they crooked?
The lines, don't they go?
Those are the
No,
plates.
those are the
These
plates. Those
Now,
are the plates going down.
Okay.
Okay, this is my artistic ability. Okay, anyhow, so this is a heat exchanger. Okay, this is our first. This is the heat exchanger, the first heat exchanger in the first effect. Okay, the heat exchanger in the first effect. Okay, and what is it? This product coming in, you see on the bottom, the product coming in on the bottom, and steam coming in on the top, and they heat each other. Okay, that's a good old fashioned traditional heat exchanger that heats up the juice. Okay,
Water, no?
what'd you say?
Is the water on the outside of this?
No, the steam on the side. Okay,
Sure. Typically, there's water.
it could be that there's water.
It's a
It could be water.
I'm just trying to heat
Yeah,
it
but it's
up.
a chili. I don't know why.
But there's no chilling. In what I'm used to, evaporators, their heat exchangers are powered by steam. I might be wrong.
But I'm just curious. Okay, I won't talk about it. And a plate, this type of heat exchanger will work just as efficiently with steam.
Yeah, why not?
Because
We used to. Well, okay, if we really liked to, you can put water. If you'd rather put hot water, you can put hot water.
Theoretically, you can use a tube shell also. You're just trying to heat it up.
You can do whatever you want to. Yes, I'm just telling you what I think is normal, but the way they would do it, they
This
would.
part has nothing to do with evaporation. You're just trying to heat up the meter.
You're gonna see, just wait, the picture's gonna go across the whole screen, okay, for now, I'm just starting, give me a second. Okay, so we put in juice, which is hot or preheated or cold juice, which usually preheated, juice comes in, and it's heating up in the first heat exchanger, okay? Then it goes, condensate comes out of the bottom, okay? We of course, the condensate comes out because of the steam, and then the juice, the hot juice now moves into the first separator. So what happens is, in the first separator, it comes in, as you'll see in the picture, from the side. Okay, it comes in from the side, and this effect has a little bit of vacuum to it. Okay, there's vacuum in this effect. Okay, however, we're not talking about that, how they create the vacuum. There's vacuum in this effect. So what happens is, when the juice comes in at 195 degrees into an effect that has a vacuum on it, what's going to happen? It's going to boil out. Okay, water is going to boil out of that effect. A certain amount of water boils out because at 195, it's already at the boiling point for the juice in that
You're
effect.
saying that it's already separating while it's going through the.
As it hit, no. In here, it's
Just
just
heating up.
hot. There's no vacuum.
Escapes for the water.
There's no vacuum in the heat exchanger. There's no vacuum in the heat exchanger. But when it gets into here, into the effect, there is a vacuum. So when it hits the vacuum,
So there's no vacuum in the heat exchanger.
right,
Just
there's
over
vacuum
here,
in the effect. So when there's vacuum in the effect,
and it's
195
already
degree
passed,
juice
so then-
hits there, so it starts boiling.
Right.
So the juice, which is comes in from the side actually, and it spins around, and as it's rolling down to the bottom, as it's spinning around the effect and rolling down to the bottom, what is boiling out of it? Okay,
So you're saying there's bottom from that one thing.
you're gonna see, yeah, you're gonna see the bottom in a second. Okay, so what is it's spinning around as it's spinning around it's a round like tube. As it's spinning around it's water's boiling out of it. Okay, because it's under vacuum and water's boiling out of it. Okay, now it's just centrifugal force. It's coming in sideways. It comes in sideways, so it just shoots in like this, so it spins around. It just,
Just go around the bottom of the.
it's like a tall cylinder. Okay, so as it spins, it's coming around from the middle, so it just spins around like this. It just rolls down to the bottom. The point being is, as it's going around and around, there's a lot of surface area. Okay, it's running itself around the edges, so the whole inside is like open.
It's filled or no?
No, it does not get filled. No, it's
like a
draining
cyclone.
out the bottom.
It's
Like a cyclone. Yes, like a cyclone.
Whatever's left over goes at the bottom.
You're going to see the bottom in a second. Just wait. You're going to see the bottom in a second. So it's spinning around, and the water is boiling out. Is boiling out.
And the water's running out of steam.
It's steam. Yeah, it's
Right,
steam.
The light blue steam. It's not.
That's supposed
not
That's supposed to
water.
be steam.
Right.
Right. The blue as in water vapor,
No, I just wanna
kind
make
of like
sure I
you know.
understand.
Purple as in like grape juice, and
Yeah.
blue as in like steam vapor, like that. Okay. So it's the steam is boiling out, and there's something called evaporative cooling, which is to say when things boil, the liquid that's left behind, when you take a liquid and you put it into a situation where some of it boils, the rest of it cools down in temperature, like you see in a spray dryer. Like, you know, when you Kashrus spray dryer, you pour in water that's 212 and it comes out 150 on the bottom. It's something called evaporative cooling. Okay, I'm not going to explain it. Okay, just believe me. So when the
The
juice,
energy of the heat when it's
Right,
in
it's
that.
transfer. It's
okay,
used up.
wonderful. So but good. Okay, so what happens is, so out of this, we have steam rising to the top and juice that's a little bit concentrated, lost some of its water going down to the bottom. Okay, now what happens is that steam and water join each other in the next heat exchanger, which is part of the next effect.
Right.
So the juice that's coming out of here, the partially concentrated juice coming out of the first separator now becomes the product for the second heat exchanger, and it's heated by its steam. His brother, who just boiled out of it a minute ago, the steam that boiled out of the top there is now coming and heating this juice in the second heat exchanger.
Just to be efficient.
This is a complete for efficiency. The only time you add energy is in the first one. The only thing that's added is the steam in the first one. Everything else goes for free. Okay, everybody else goes for free. Yes.
Right.
You're going to see the steam over here is 195.
If this is my very rudimentary understanding over here, if it's 195 when it went in there, right? So that means that there's some total of heat that you could gain is 195. So that means that the
No,
product next
no.
to
Oh,
go
okay,
is
okay.
likely
So
to be 195.
no, incorrect. It's true. It's only 195, but we because
Just
under
gaining-
pressure.
no.
Steam by definition is 195.
Right. No, the steam is 195 degrees. The steam is 195 degrees. It's under vacuum, so it boils at less than 212. It's under vacuum. But okay, this is an ikar in understanding steam. In order to turn water into steam, there's temperature, so it gets to 195 degrees, and then there's something called latent heat. Okay, the important ichor for heat, for steam. 195 degree steam has in it about 800 degrees worth of heat in it that doesn't raise the temperature. It's called latent heat. It's bekoyach. Okay, it's not bepoil. Okay, bepoil, it's 195. Bekoyach, it's about 1,000 degrees. Okay, there's this energy called latent heat that's sitting in there. In order to get water, energy, yes, to get water to go from liquid to boil, after we get the water in our house to 212, you have to add in about another 800 degrees worth of temperature, what we call BTUs, into it in order to get it to convert from a liquid into a vapor. All that energy is inside the steam that's coming into the heat exchange. Okay, so it's coming at 195, but it's carrying the power of be'erach 1,000 degrees. Okay, so it has a lot of,
The steam could carry.
the steam is carrying a lot of energy, which is not going to give over to its juice brother that just came out of the first effect. Okay,
How hot is the steam?
the steam is 195 degrees, but it's heating as if, so to speak, as if it was 1,000 degrees. Okay, it's giving over energy into the juice. It won't make the juice more than 195. It can't, but it can give over. It could do a lot of heating to that juice that's coming out.
When the latent is gonna do.
Yeah, the latent transfers. So latent heat transfers really quickly, really easily. So latent heat transfers. That's why steam heats really quickly.
Well, the mice is only 195.
But it's 195 with lots of energy
The
behind it.
mice,
Okay, so it's the same lamaisa as your thing that you weren't going to get, that was boiling. Okay, anyhow, so what happens? So in the second effect, the same thing goes on. Okay, and the water condensate comes out the bottom, out, and the water, the juice that goes into the second separator is not as hot. Now it's 175. Okay, it only got up to it got to 175, but the juice that came to 175 over here is now even more concentrated. Okay, because what's in the second separator, the vacuum is stronger in the second separator. It's even stronger than the first one. So at 175, water boils out, and now juice spins around and comes out the bottom again, more concentrated. And then
Latent heat important, the latent energy important to us.
yes, that's what makes it be able to boil. That's what
The conscious we ignore it. Fact is, of a kayak here.
no, we can't, no, we don't ignore it. We need to know that it exists because it's played.
I'm saying in Shulchan Aruch, we don't reckon with that. Something.
You don't have to reckon with it in Shulchan Aruch. You have to just know that it happens to understand how things work.
It wouldn't affect your lettuce play or anything like that.
No, I guess
No.
if you want a cash, you have to know.
That's what I'm saying. For kashrus, you don't have to.
No, you have
You have to know how to cash.
So we
Not
look at
me.
whatever it is in the mice.
no. For kashrus, we just need the temperature. We need to know it to understand what's going on in the
How to
machine.
get the temperature. You want to know how to get the temperature.
If you look at the temperature.
Okay. Anyhow.
It's not gonna be a problem.
Okay. So now we go after the second effect. Guess what?
Right.
The same thing happens again. So
And the
okay,
reason why they're doing why can't they just do it under the extreme vacuum and just do it all at once is because it's.
It's efficiency. No, it's
flavor.
efficiency. It's efficiency. This way we only have to put in steam once, and we get all this done by just heating it once.
If they would lower the vacuum, if they would make the vacuum even more intense.
In
then
the first one.
In the first one, then the temperature would
Okay,
be
we would accomplish everything.
much lower, and then if the
Right, that
temperature
would be more
lower,
complicated,
then they
but that
need to
wouldn't-
have-
So in a tube falling film evaporator, we do something like that. Okay, but that's not what goes on here.
But
Okay?
I'm just,
It's probably-
why? Just because when it's gradual, it preserves the flavor?
That I don't no flavor. We'll get to in a second. We didn't get the flavor yet. Okay, I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. Okay, so then we go to our third effect. Okay, and the same thing happens. Okay, again, here the juice got even lower temperature. The vacuum is even stronger. And this is you see I'm at the end of the screen.
Yeah.
So this is our last. This is our last.
And the condensate never returns.
I'm getting to the condensate in a second. I'm going to get to that in a second. So we get to the third effect, and in the third effect, our juice is now again the vacuum is stronger. In our case, the last evaporation is happening. So what happens is steam goes out the top. Okay, steam boils out the top, and our finished concentrated juice comes out the bottom. Okay, so now we've done it in each effect. We got a little bit of water out until we got to the last one. By that point, we've gotten as much water as we wanted out. We got all the water out that we wanted to, and our water is concentrated. Okay,
Yeah, I have a company that does this, and I never have what was going on.
that's why you came to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. Okay, so here now,
So that is to make concentrated juice. That's the idea.
it's what?
To make concentrated juice.
Well, to juice or the other example we're using is to concentrate milk before you spray dry it. So the point is you're getting rid of the water So either because the juice you want concentrated juice, or in the case of milk, you want that. So rather than have the spray dry get out all the water, you concentrate the milk first, so that as a step before spray drying, it makes it easier to do spray drying. So it's concentrate anything else. You want to get the water out. That's the whole point here, is to get the water. You're concentrating it by getting rid of the water. Okay. So now this is the picture that was on the opening screen. And that like this. Okay. In this picture, you're looking at 4 effects. Okay. You're not seeing the heat exchanger. Okay. You're just seeing the separators, or the calandrias, you want to call them. Okay, here's 4 of them. Okay, the
What do you
4
call them? The what?
calandrias. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Okay, these are these are the 4 effects in this picture. Okay, in the red box over here.
Not in order the way they're
Yes,
supposed to go. The one is the first one.
yeah. Well, orders like 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how.
And then
Yeah.
the left one is the first one.
Correct.
Why is there an indentation around the middle?
I'm about to show you. So I'm about to show. That's what the red box. I'm about to show you the red box. That's the juice coming into the heat into the separate to make it spin around. I told you it comes in from the side. It comes in from the side and then it spins around. So the juice in this, I don't know if this case was juice. The juice that comes in is coming in this way sideways.
Wide?
In this case, it's very wide. In this case, it's very wide.
So they want to make more of a.
They want to spin around.
Yeah, but isn't the surface is good, right? The increases, if you want to make it into surface.
Yes. So this is the juice comes in sideways into the red boxes you're seeing is the juice coming in, is where the juice comes in. Okay, and then on the top is where the steam, the top picture didn't come out as good. So the vapor coming out. Okay, that's the vapor boiling out of the top, and it goes in like an upside down letter J. Okay, it boils out the top and heads down to hit the heat exchanger to go into the next one. Okay, the heat exchangers are in the back.
Why do you need so much space on the top?
The top is where the boiling is happening. That's where the vapor is. Okay,
And you need a big section because.
it must be a physics thing. I don't know why. I don't know. So the water, that's where the vapor is boiling out and heading out the top. Okay? So this is what they look like. I mean, give or take.
So it's coming, the steam is going out into the next.
Out the top and
Into the next thing.
behind. What we don't see
Okay.
behind here are the heat exchangers that are feeding the next one. So coming out of the second one, this one coming out of the second one. You see, you can see a little bit that it bends down. It's like a J, an upside down J. Bends down, goes up here, up into the green. Behind there, right? It bends down, and then there's a heat exchanger between 2 and 3, and that heat exchanger feeds number 3, and then number 3 comes out.
And the pumps on the bottom? What are they for?
Is that maybe moving the juice from one side to the other? I don't remember. I don't know. Maybe that's moving the juice from the second one to the third. I don't know. Okay.
Around?
So while we talked all about the evaporating and how the evaporation part of it is going on. Okay, while we talked about all of that, you noticed I kept mentioning that there's condensate coming out of each thing. Okay, and the reason why I mention that is because it's important for us. Okay, and I kept mentioning it so sort of get you realize that it's important for us to know. I'm going to go back to you'll see it. You'll see it better. Okay, to this picture, this condensate comes out of each one of these heat exchangers. Okay, the heat exchangers are using steam to heat them up. Okay, the guys argue that no, they want water to be in the first one, but for sure in the other ones is going to be steam coming, is what's heating it. So there's condensate coming out of each of them. Now, the condensate coming out of the first heat exchanger is good old-fashioned condensate, like any other place in the factory. And they could send that to the boiler. They can do whatever they want to with that condensate. There's like good old-fashioned condensate like in any other place. Okay, the condensate coming out of the later effects, the later heat exchangers, can't go back to the boiler.
Because it's juice.
Because, well, it's not juice, it's really water,
It came-
but
it
it
came
has
from the-
carryover of juice in it. It does have carryover to it. So you're not sending, that's not going back to the boiler. Okay, no one's sending, you're not going to send that back to the boiler. Okay, so what's going to happen to the condensate from those other ones? Okay, what's going to happen to it?
Make it juice.
So-
That's how it-
There's a few choices. There's a few choices. Okay, one is what people have mentioned, and that is like this, what they hinted at, which is when you boil juice to evaporate it. Okay, when you boil juice, not only does the water boil out, but the flavor boils out also. Okay, the flavor is more volatile. That's the word they use. It's more volatile than the water is, so the flavor boils out very quickly. When you heat up water in your house, like in a pot, someone mentioned, you're going to lose the flavor of it, called the flavor essence. You lose because that stuff boils out really quickly. So when you boil, in particular, at the second heat exchanger, at the first effect, you're going to be boiling out water with a lot of the flavor. So the condensate coming out of that second heat exchanger, which is basically it's the vapor coming out of the first effect, that vapor, you want to capture that if it's juice, if it's something you care about the flavor of it, then you capture it and you send it to a distillation column called an essence recovery system, where you take the condensate that came out of there and you distill it to separate the essence, the flavor from the water. And then you take that essence and you put it back into the juice. So if you make concentrated grape juice from concentrate, it means is you concentrate it like this, you concentrate the grape juice, but you capture the essence from the condensate that you have in order to put that flavor back into your grape juice, to make your grape juice taste like something.
Into the concentrate.
Into the concentrate, you put it back into the concentrate so that the concentrate will taste like something. Okay.
So for some reason, grape essence does not smell. Because I never tasted it. Does not smell like grape.
It does not. What does it smell like?
I don't know. But
Okay. But
it smells very good.
okay. Well, that's what it's for. Okay, I don't know. That's what it's for. So like in other words, the difference between a higher quality or a lower quality juice from concentrate is how much essence they put back in. You don't have to put in as much as you got. If you got out 1 ounce, you could put in back 2 ounces. You could put out a half an ounce. You could put nothing.
That's the most valuable part.
That's correct. So you deciding it, depending on how good you want your juice to taste will be how much you put back in. The essence is more valuable than the concentrated juices. You put it in as you want. Okay. So when like I'm off topic, but if you make a Mazurnis roll and you use apple juice in it, okay, and use apple juice from concentrate. So part of the reason why it doesn't taste like apple juice is because you use the cheapest apple juice you can, because you're just doing it so you can tell the rabbi that you put in apple juice. You use the cheapest apple juice, doesn't taste like apple juice. Okay, it's apple juice, but it don't taste like apple juice because you get the cheapest one. The cheapest has the least or the none essence in it, and therefore it doesn't taste like apples. Okay, anyway, okay, that's a side point.
But is apple juice concentrate or?
It could be apple juice from concentrate. Apple juice from concentrate is legally.
Concentrate that they like apple. Just but they're gonna put in water too.
No, concentrate, if you don't put an essence, will taste very little like apple.
Oh,
The flavor boiled out. The flavor out for the water, you just put in good water, not flavored water. Okay, so one thing you do with condensate is you send it to essence recovery. Okay, that's one thing you do with it. Okay, another thing you could do is you say is,
You have a picture of that? What is it, the columns?
yeah, it's a regular distillation column, nothing special, but it would be in a juice plant, it would be there for the essence recovery. That's what it's in a juice concentration plant, it's for essence recovery. So that's one thing. And another thing you can do with it, and that is like this. Let's say you're making milk, okay? There's no essence recovery from milk, okay? No one's getting back flavor from milk. So you're just boiling out milk, okay? So you're doing salt or whatever other thing you're concentrating, and you don't care about it. You're not trying to capture any flavor out of the condensate. Well, you have this hot water. You can't send it to the boiler. Okay, so what you could pour it down the drain if you want to, yes, but there's better things to do with it. Let's say on the other side of the plant, you have something that needs hot water for its process. Okay, let's say you're making something else that needs hot water in it. You need hot water. So here's hot water that's there. It has a little flavor to it. Who cares? It doesn't bother anybody. So you need hot water in the plant. Why heat up new hot water? Take the hot water from this condensate and pour it into a vessel in another part of the plant. Or what happens if you need to preheat something? Like what happens if you need to preheat this juice coming in? Okay, you need someplace hot water as a preheater. So this stuff could be hot water is perfectly fine to be used as a preheater someplace. Okay, in other words, you want this hot water here. You could pour it down the drain, or you could use it someplace else in the plant, or you could use it as your first rinse in your CIP. Your CIP first rinse doesn't have to be great, but you need hot water. You want hot water for it, so you have free hot water coming out of here. So why let it go down the drain? Send it to your CIP tank and let it use that to use your first cleaning of your equipment all around the plant.
The temperature is not going to be very high.
Whatever it is, it's better than the city water. It's free. It's there. So if it's not worth it, you let it go down the drain. But if you have some use for it in the plant, then why not use it? Okay. So
Condensate for number 2.
We're just using it to wash out.
It'll be
No, it's
plenty hot.
It's free water. It's free water.
It's hot water.
It's hot
Okay.
warm water.
Yeah, it's whatever it is. Okay, so that's called in the industry, that's called cow water. Okay, that's stuff that comes out of this condensate that you can't send back to the boiler, but it's hot water that's condensate that has uses in the plant. It's called cow water. Okay,
What is from grape juice? What are they called?
I don't know. In my mind, they call it cow water. Okay, so now, and then that has the status of whatever it came from. Okay, so it's a Kashrus rush about cow water, steam from a milk, or Kashrus reverse from grape juice. Okay, so it has to deal with what it came from. If we were concentrating grape juice and it was stam yayin, then that condensate is stam yayin. And if we're boiling milk and what comes out of there is milk. Okay,
Is that a finish? It's push, right?
it's pasha to you. It's a shalom rishonim.
What's a child?
What's the shaila? It was a new thing. It was something new that came up. It was something new that came up in about 1,000 years ago.
You're saying the shadow is when it evaporated.
Does it? Well, what happened? The reason for the shaila is because we talked about it with the alcoholic beverages, if you're curious. But the shaila is that when it's a vapor, it's not awesome.
Yeah,
So now it went from a liquid to.
Why didn't also it's a paper?
What do you say?
Why isn't it also?
It's not. It's invisible. There's nothing there. It's an invisible thing. What do you mean? It's there's nothing here. It's an empty pipe. If you look at it, there's nothing in the pipe. It's a blank, empty pipe. So you say, what? So there's magical water coming out of the other side. Okay. Anyhow. Okay. So now.
Is it the atom chal without the Nesina stam? Is it not?
No, it has a din of. It's a riot from a mission in Tful Yom, I think it is. I don't know. They bring a riot. Yeah. Okay. Not for today, but anyhow. So. Okay. So. What that the reason why I told you that, aside that it's interesting and you should know what goes on, is that means is that if there's an evaporator in the plant, that even if the evaporator is not used for kosher and treif, or even if the evaporator is not kosher altogether, not under hashgacha, the what's going on in the evaporator affects other things going on in the plant. You have to care about the cow water coming out of that evaporator because it's used other places in the plant. And I'm going to give you 2 examples. Okay, 2 examples. There was a plant that at least one person here knows about. Okay, and this company needed to wash. They had raw potatoes coming into the factory, and they needed to wash them in hot water before they made them into potato starch. Okay, and the potato starch part of the plant was simple as anything. Okay, there's nothing complicated going on about it. They're taking potatoes and turning into potato starch. Okay, and they need to wash it with hot water. Way down the line, in another part of the plant that did not have hashgacha to it, they were concentrating something to do a protein product in another part of the plant. Okay, there was an evaporator in the other side of the plant, and it wasn't under hashgacha. They said, we have this great idea. We have all this water coming out of the condensate coming out of the evaporator. We need hot water to wash our potatoes on the other side of the plant. We got all this hot water right here. What need to make up our own hot water? We got hot water over here that we can take from over there and bring it to this side of the plant to wash our raw potatoes coming into it. Okay. What?
How hot was it?
It was however hot coming out of the evaporator. So the different stages is different amounts. The point was, so for that company we said to them was that protein side of your plant needs to be under hashgacha, not because you could care less whether it's certified, because we need to keep an eye on that evaporator to make sure that the water for that washing your potatoes doesn't make your potatoes strafe. Okay. Yeah, you're too rabbinic. We get about cliche to them. We can't have treif hot water going on the kosher potatoes. Yeah, you could sit at home and think about this. Okay, yes, okay. Another example. Another example. There was a company that if I remember the details correctly, they needed to kasher from chalav stam milk powder to chalav yisrael milk powder. Okay, so they had a kasher. They had a kasher the kalim to go from chalav stam to chalav yisrael. Okay, so they went to kasher, and when you kasher, however they worked it out, they started with the CRP system. Okay, and then someone realized that the CRP system is fed with cow water. Okay, so they were gonna that means to say is if you would follow the procedures the way it's supposed to be, they'd be kashering their chalav yisrael equipment with chalav stam water. Okay, that wouldn't exactly do the trick, the rabbis could think about that even more. That could work, but that wasn't obviously a very smart idea. Okay, so we've talked about how the machine runs. We talked about being aware particularly about the condensate, again, because you care about the condensate because it spreads around the plant in ways that might make a difference. And now I'm going to talk about kashrut. Oh, sorry, go through the slides again. Sorry, guys. Okay, whoops. Okay, here. Okay, so there are 3 big things to think about when we think about kashering the evaporator. First is, the ikar din is you're allowed to kasher kabbalah kach poltei, the same temperature as the product was, but the minig, way some of the places can say it is to always use roishlin. Okay, so we would like, if we can, to do roishlin. If not, we'll be satisfied with kabbalah kach poltei. But in doing kabbalah kach poltei, we have to remember that what I said at the way beginning, that this whole system works because the water boils at a lower temperature than the solids that are in there, at a lower temperature than the milk solids or the grape solids that are in there. So if we run the machinery exactly the way it was used during production, and we're kashering with water, the water is not going to be at the same temperature that the product was, because the product runs at boiling points of grape juice or milk or whatever that was in there, or soup or whatever was in there, which is at a higher temperature than what we have. Like say, like grape juice boils at 214, 215 degrees, okay, or the salad, or as it gets more and more concentrated, the boiling point actually goes higher and higher. And if we run just plain water, it's not going to be that temperature, okay?
Therefore.
So therefore, if we're saying we're just doing Kabbalah Kapota,
But if it's boiling, it's boiling, even though it's lower temperature.
no, because Kashrus goes with temperature.
You know, there's problems with that. There's all kinds of problems with that.
There's problems with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that means you're telling me you think a Kaylee became treif in Chicago and Kashrus in Denver. Whoever said this.
So we took that a 1,000 years ago, but the truth is that those are all considered roasted. They're all at temperature. So if you take it to Tibet, then you'd have a problem. So if the guy's backpacking in Tibet decided, I bought a treif kli and now I was close to Chuva and I decided on top of Tibet to
Really?
be
That's a problem.
Kashrus, then I potentially have a problem. Yes.
Because why is the better problem not Denver?
Oh, because in Denver it's still roasted.
Yeah, how about the
There's
high-
close
how
enough
about
to
the
roasted.
reactor, the high pressure thing?
So no, we never need to go. No, we don't never need to go over roasting. But so even if, let's say if you fry something in your house, oil is much hotter than 212.
Okay.
So you don't have to get roasting is the max. Okay, that's
Yeah,
the
so how come
so-
Poskim don't say this?
So there's
they
different
do. Contemporary press say we said this many years ago.
Listen, anybody ever has said you can Kashrus boiling, end of story.
What?
You can Kashrus boiling, end of story. We don't pay attention to the temperature.
Right, so you get the
Because
boiling at 70
Right.
degrees.
Okay, now
because-
that's what you have to let us play. Fine, that's what you have to let us play.
No,
But-
because that idea that we could create a vacuum and boil things at 150 degrees is a modern invention that didn't exist. The basics didn't have that. So what did he think about? What happened when I went to Tibet? He didn't think about going to Tibet. Okay, he was
What's Tibet? I know you're asking me about Tibet. What's Tibet different than Denver?
Oh, Denver's rice.
Then-
because
It's
they-
And what? So-
190,
and the guy did it.
Tibet is a big difference.
Muscles, bad
Yeah,
muscles.
so that's
Right.
small, there's a big-
It has
come on.
No.
Over 200 degrees.
Well,
right?
Yeah. Muscles not.
Okay,
it's not-
okay. Okay, we will. It's a totally different story. I'm sorry, guys, we mentioned it. Okay, I'm not sorry I mentioned it. I'm sorry we got into it. Okay. Second is, okay. Another thing is, we only kasher. We could kasher things that were used with zaya through zaya, and things that are used with water through water. We could use water where we had zaya also. We can't use zaya where we had water. Get it?
Presumably that does not turn into water.
Unless the zaya turns into water. But if it's zaya by itself, we can't use zaya to kasher where there was a thing that needed to be kasher with water.
So water kashes everything, but Zay cannot. But
Correct.
Zay does not.
Ramosha says
Yeah.
logically, you should zaya is even stronger because it has latent heat in it. He doesn't say that latent, whatever, but it's even stronger. As far as it should be, but we're not sure, so we don't do that. Okay, that's what Ramosha says. Okay, now so when we think about the parts of our, okay, I'm going to give you a little one. Okay, here's a mini because it's going to fit in here. When we think about which parts are the parts that need water, okay, which are the sides that needs water? Okay, so basically it's everything in this picture that was purple. Okay, wherever the product went, those need to be kashed with water. So in each of the heat exchangers, it's the product side of the heat exchanger. And each of the separators, it's at least the bottom part of the separator are the parts that touch water. Those are the parts that need to be kashed with water.
Why? Number 2 and the heat exchanger 2 and 3 had product in the other side.
No, it didn't. It had steam on the other side.
Steam of product.
It had steam. Was it a liquid or was it a vapor? What was in there? I'm talking about what has to be liquid or vapor. So on the product side of all the heat exchangers and the bottom half of each of the separators needs to be kashed with liquid. Okay. Now you'll tell me, well, what needs to be kashed with steam is the top parts. Okay, and the media side of all the things. Okay, it's not so clear. Water does spray around a little bit. It's not so clear, but we're going to work with an assumption that those parts get kashed with steam, could be kashed with steam, and the other parts, the purple parts, are the parts that need to be kashed with.
So
water.
it would seem to be passionate. You just have to mimic what you usually do.
So I'm
and
gonna-
then
I'm-
turn
so
into
I'm gonna-
steam.
Can't.
So-
because it's a lower temperature than the
Okay,
product. With water and grape juice.
correct. If we just run water, we're not going to get the same temperatures that we had during production because the water boils at a lower temperature. If we do everything the way it
And why
was,
would you increase the vacuum?
so I'm going to talk about that. That's how I'm
Okay,
coming to. That's I'm just
why
leading you up
can't
to
you
it.
keep the Kasher with kosher grape juice.
with Sharmashkin, we can't kasher that either. Okay, now,
Again, the problem you're saying is what? You can't use just water. You can't just put in water.
if you run water, say turn on the machine the way regular and run with water, it's going to be a lower temperature than the product was. So we're trying.
You're saying it'll be water
Such
there,
rabbis
just be
over here.
lower temperature?
Yes, because at X level vacuum, the
It's
water
gonna be boiling.
it's going to be boiling at a lower temperature.
I'm still not getting what you're
That's why you
answering
use
me.
Shamashkin.
That loch is boiling enough, just like you said with oil. So why is this worse? Because it's in the vacuum. So
No,
why?
no,
Who said
no,
why?
because
Who's thought up this chumrah with?
so I'm going to ask you to pause that. We'll talk about that afterwards. Well, I'll tell you. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to agree with it. Okay.
Apparently, you're not the only one that said it. Then.
I didn't make it up.
I understand.
Okay. So now let's remember, of course, also that we want to make sure the regular things like our waters. It's ain't been young. We don't do kasher with cow water. We have to run our machinery for long enough to have the finest makaris. These are like little things that sort of traditional kashering things we think about. Okay, now, so what are our choices? Okay, so I'm going to show you two choices. Okay, one is the easier choice, which is not as good, and one is the more complicated choice, which is better. Okay. Okay. First choices. Raise the set point of the heat exchanger. Okay, so people said just raise the amount that you wanted to and lower the vacuum and separators. Okay, so if we raise the set point for the heat exchange for the first heat exchanger, that's the only one we can control directly. Okay, we could say, steam, we want you to hit it at a higher temperature in the first heat exchanger. The water going through the system will now be a little bit hotter than it was, which is to say is close to the temperature of what the juice was. Okay. And if we lower the vacuum will also increase the temperature. Okay, lowering the vacuum means instead of it boiling at, let's say 195, we had before, to boil at 200. Okay,
So lower the vacuum and making it less.
Less, lower the vacuum.
No, yeah, it's confusing.
Okay, well that's okay, whatever. So we make the vacuum less. Decrease. Okay, so that will work. Now that will work, and it'll do everything we wanted it to do, but it will be doing it at Kabbalah Kach Polter. Okay, that's fair. Okay, but that's not preferred.
Even more. What do you mean?
It'll be about Kabbalah Kach Polter. I mean, it won't be Roiskin.
More and lower and more.
You can't get Roiskin into the later ones. Okay, you can't get Roiskin into the later ones, but it'll be as better than we had, and Mikra will be fine.
It always goes down.
Because the temperature keeps going down as you go from effect to
But
effect.
as long as you're doing it.
Sorry,
at the
it'll be
same
Kabbalah
ratio,
Kach. It'll be Kabbalah Kach Polter, but it
Right.
won't be Roiskin.
So just puts more
that's-
steam into new shit. The other one.
No matter how much you're going to pump into here, it's automatically
No,
be.
Can you introduce steam to 2 and 3?
No, you can't. They're not made for
Built
that.
in.
They're not. Okay, here we go. There's a. So now option. We have another option. Okay, and option number 2 is it's going to be in 2 stages. Okay, and the first stage is going to be the same as the other one. Okay, and what we did was we kashered as much as we could of the other one. Okay. Now, for our second stage, what we're going to do for the second, what the goal of the second stage is to get our water temperature to be even higher. But what's going to happen is like this: if we make the set point on the first heat exchanger to be 212, okay, we make it as hot as we can make it, and we completely turn off the vacuum on all the separators. Okay, we turn no vacuum on the separators. So what's going to happen? The water that we're using for kashering is going to start off at Roiskin, and it's going to go from effect to effect at Roiskin. Okay, it'll probably lose a little bit of temperature as it moves along, but give or take, it'll be going through the whole thing at Roiskin. Okay, and that's great. We love to have Roiskin wood in all the places. What we're going to lose is there's going to be no evaporation, no steam. So the tops are not going to get kashered, and the vapor side are not going to get kashered. Yeah, it'll spin around, but what's going to happen is there'll be no boiling, and there'll be no vapor. None of the vapor sides will get kashered, not the top of these separators, and not the other side of the heat exchanger.
It's flying through 212 and there's no steam coming in.
A little bit, there'll be a little bit, but not presumably not enough to kasher. But the point is, we cover those in our stage 1. Okay, stage 1 kashered all the parts that needed vapor as much as we could. We did what we could for that. But the second stage point is we're getting boiling water to as many places as we can. So we have that extra. That's what we advantage of this. Because of Zaya. No, it had Zaya of hot just hitting it.
I know. So it sounds Kedera, like
You could call it Kisik there if you want to. You can call that, or just because
it's also the second one is activation machine. What did it?
So it's an in between, because what it is it's not the finest Bakaris. It runs for 10 hours straight with stuff going through it. So it's between a cliche and a cleavage. What we say is because it doesn't have the finest makara, so it doesn't have the lower status of klisheni. It's close to klish.
It does not have.
Does not have the finest makaras.
It's cold.
Doesn't have the
It's
cooler.
cold.
What?
The walls were cold before.
Well, the wall, no, but after we run it for hours,
No,
the
no, but
wall.
his point is if we make it a mix, then now it's cold.
So when we did our first stage, we'll have preheated it. So I mentioned
Yeah.
quickly was we have to run it for long enough to have no more defined makaras. We have to do that to gain that advantage, not defined makaras.
In the kashrus, we do it for
In the kashering, we run the
And when
kashering.
they do it,
They do it at a time.
it's hot, it's cold.
It's not the finest.
Well, the first minute it's cold, but after 15 minutes, it's not cold anymore.
So we have to-
So we have to run our kashering for long enough. That was one thing I said so quickly was the regular kashering issues, which you have to make sure we do things like that for regular kashering reasons, like make sure we don't have defined makaras. Okay, now there's such a thing. I'll just throw in. There's such a thing. There are people who who clean their evaporators with spray balls. Okay, and they actually spray ball on the inside of it to clean it, or they even fill it up. They could close the bottom up and fill it up with a lot of water and chemicals, and clean it up. Okay, that will do a fine job and potentially could be used for kashering, but typically that's not going to help you for the steam side of the heat exchangers. Okay, so we have to think about those sides also.
Spray wall put on top.
It could be, but la dafka is it going to be?
So I mean, if you fill it up, it'll overflow. into
So
the steam side.
yes or no, you have to pay attention to what's going on. It's not designed to do that. It could be used. I'm saying it's a tool potentially. Okay, but
Do they have their own CIP? I'm assuming if they want to switch from grape juice to milk or whatever. I mean, right?
CIP is CIP. No,
No, but they have their own cleaning system. So
Yeah,
if you're saying it's not
presumably.
designed. I'm just wondering if you know why.
Well,
Why
they
wouldn't it be designed
put
to have-
cold do it with cold water and chemicals and they have.
okay.
Okay.
The say to people.
Go
So,
ahead.
yeah,
So I can't explain to me, where is this woman coming from? You know?
I have a company that makes juice concentrate. I manage them.